Republican Senator Pat Toomey laid out his proposal on Tuesday and joins me now. Senator, there is such a big gap between the two sides. What's going to happen when Republicans go see the president tomorrow? How can he bridge this gap?
Well, Andrea, I think it's time for the president to really get engaged. And so the meeting tomorrow could be a constructive first step. But the American people and Republican members of Congress have made it very clear. We've got to have less spending. We've got to reduce the size of the deficit. And frankly, I think we've got to get on a path balanced budget. That's the direction we need to go. And, Republicans in the Senate, I'm pretty sure, are not going to vote to raise the debt limit until we make some real progress on that front. So hopefully the president will join this effort.
Would some kind of triggers that might kick in later be enough to persuade you to vote for the debt ceiling to be raised?
Not for me, they wouldn't. These triggers, first of all, depending on how they're designed, sometimes they're just designed to be an excuse for a tax increase. Many of my colleagues here want to increase taxes, and if you give them a trigger that then justifies it, they'll make sure to pull that trigger. I don't want to raise taxes. I think we've got to reduce spending. We can't be doing this based on promises for future cuts. They never materialize. We need to make cuts now. I think that we're going to have a pretty strong message for the president tomorrow.
I was at a briefing earlier today with Chuck Schumer, and he said that people are kidding themselves if they think that this debt ceiling problem isn't real. That as far as he's concerned, the markets are going to get very nervous and interest rates are going to go up noticeably, and before August 1st, if they think there's no progress being made.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because there's a great deal of disinformation that's being propagated by people who simply want to raise the debt limit and keep on business as usual. And the gist of it is that somehow if we don't raise the debt limit immediately upon reaching it, we're going to default on our debt. And that's just factually absolutely wrong. And people who know better shouldn't be spreading it.
Tim Geithner says that it can be stretched out to August 2nd or so. No. That is really a drop-dead date.
No. Let me be very clear.
You're not buying it.
It has nothing to do with August 2nd. And here's why, Andrea. If we never were to raise the debt limit, which I'm not advocating, but if we never raise the debt limit at all, the Treasury would still take in 70% of all the money they plan to spend in the form of tax revenue. The amount of money needed to service our debt is only 6% of our expenditures. So with more than 10 times the revenue needed to avoid a default, what Treasury Secretary is going to default on our debt? It will never happen. Now, what would happen if we reach the debt limit and don't raise it is we would have a partial government shutdown. It would be very disruptive. We'd probably have some employees furloughed. We'd have those kinds of disruptions. That's not the same as a catastrophic default on our debt. So there's no scenario in which we're going to have a default on our debt. Frankly, I think the markets would most like to see that we're making some progress on our structural deficits because I think we're at the end of the road with these big deficits we've been running.
Well, you've just laid out why the gap is so wide and what the challenge is for the president and the Senate Republicans when they get together tomorrow. Senator Pat Toomey from Pennsylvania, it is great to see you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Andrea.
And what political story will be making